Hello, 7th grade. This is Miss Hall here. I'm trying to help better your understanding for math from home. I'm going to try things a little bit differently than last week. I think the YouTube videos might have helped some, but I think this will help more. So I'm going to try to do it as if we were in class on my iPad here, allowing you to see my screen. So with that being said, I have a couple important things to say. One, please treat this as if you are in the classroom. I ask that you put yourself in an environment where you can focus. I ask you to take notes on this. That way you can keep it for a study guide. This is all going to be in your final exam as well, so make sure you guys are really paying attention to this and really trying your hardest. And also, when I post this on Padlet, I will include my phone number. I ask that you guys text me your name. That way, if I have any questions in regards to the work you have submitted, I can text you guys. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to text me as well as we're going through this process together online. This is something new to both of us, to all of us. Let's do this together and work together. Know that I'm here to help in any way possible. Alright, so let's get started. First and foremost, I want to do a short little review from this past week. So, if it were up to me, I would advise writing this down, making sure that you have everything written down. Again, this is all going on your final exam towards the end of the year, so it's very important that we go over this. Alright, so first and foremost, we had the positive and negative numbers. When we add and subtract, think of it more on a number line. If you're starting off negative, if you add more than what you have to bring you to a positive number, no, that's a possibility. You might stay negative, but more importantly, when you multiply and divide by a negative number, if you have the same signs, then your answer will be positive. If you have different signs, then your answer will be negative. Okay? Just a quick refresher. I'm going to throw this up here with the adding and subtracting negative numbers. If I have negative 7 plus 4, think about it on a number line. I have negative 7. If I'm adding 4, I'm going to go towards the positive side, which is the right. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll start negative 7. Then it goes to negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3. So your final answer would then be negative 3. Multiplying and dividing, let's say that I have negative 12 divided by negative 6. First and foremost, do you have the same or different signs? You have the same signs, so your answer is going to be positive. And what's 12 divided by 6? That is 2. So your answer would be a positive 2. And the positive sign isn't necessarily needed, so you could just put 2. Alrighty. Moving on, let's go to mean, median, mode, and range. Again, I'm really hoping that you guys are writing this down, keeping it for your notes. This is going to be very important as soon as we return back to school. Alright, so for mean, you should think of the average. For median, you should think of the word middle. For mode, I've always thought of the word most. And range, you should think of the word difference. Alright, so with an example, if I had these set of numbers 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 10. Alright. The first thing we want to find is the mean. To find the mean, or the average, you're going to add up all of your numbers. So I'm going to start off with 4 plus 7 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 10. So 4 plus 7 is 11. Plus 2 is 13. Plus 3 is 16. Plus 4 is 20. Plus 10 is 30. So I add all of my numbers up, I get 30. How many individual numbers do I have in my set? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 numbers. So I'm going to take my sum and then divide that by 6. 30 divided by 6 is 5, so therefore our mean is 5. Alrighty. Median. I misspelled median up here, guys. I'm sorry. Alright, to find the median, we're going to put our numbers from least to greatest. So from the least to greatest, I have 2, 3, 4, 4, 7, and 10. To find the number in the middle, you cross off one on the beginning and one at the end. Then you repeat that. If you do not have a number in the middle where I could cross these off and you get a single number, you want to take your two middle numbers and add them together, which would give us 8. And then you divide that by the numbers in the middle, which of course is 2. You have two numbers that are in the middle left over, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Of course, the middle between 4 and 4 is 4. But for example, if our middle numbers were 5 and 6, we wanted to find the median between 5 and 6, it would be 5.5 or 5.5. Because then you would take these, add it together, you have 11 divided by 2 would be 5.5. So add the two numbers in the middle, divide by 2, that gives you the median. The mode, the number that appears the most. What number appears the most? I have 4 twice. Does any number repeat more than twice? No, so our mode would be 4. And then the range, I'm going to refer to when we did the median and we put it in least to greatest. Take the greatest number and then the least and subtract them. So I have 10 minus 2, which is then 8. Alright. And last but not least, for our review, we talked about angles. Alright, so if I have a complementary angle, or complementary angles, they add up to how many degrees? 90 degrees. And supplementary angles, they add up to 180 degrees. Alrighty, so if angle A and angle B are supplementary, and angle A is 30 degrees, what is the value of angle B? Alright, so angle A, I'm going to do the symbol for angle. So angle A plus angle B will equal 180 degrees, but we know that angle A is 30 degrees. So I'm going to say 30 plus whatever angle B is going to be equal to 180. To figure out what angle B is, you'll subtract 180 minus 30. So then angle B would be 150 degrees. Alright, just a quick refresher. And last but not least, polygons. You should have the chart from Padlet that showed all of the names for polygons 3 to 12. And just to bring that up, one of the questions may look similar to what polygon has 7 sides. So you want to think about it. You should have triangle, quadrilateral, pentagon, hexagon, heptagon. So the answer in this case would be a heptagon. So keep working on memorizing those polygons. I'm sure you can ask all of the 9th and 10th graders on how important it is to know polygons for geometry. It comes up a lot, and we do extra pop quizzes on those. So make sure that you are studying these. We will have a quiz on these when we return as well. But don't just memorize it to then forget it after the quiz. I want you guys to thoroughly study it. That way it's retaining throughout the years for you guys to make it easier as you guys get older. Alrighty, so for today, we're going to go to page 128. Introduction to Algebra. If you guys would please pause this video, do me a favor and read through 3.7 and define the bold terms. And then copy the small blue box on page 130 that says monomial, binomial, and trinomial. Those 3 things are very important. So just to clarify that again, pause the video, read 3.7, define bold terms, copy the blue box, it's a really small box. It just has monomial is 12ab, binomial is 5d plus 8, and trinomial is 7v minus 9x plus 10z. So monomial, binomial, and trinomial. Go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and do that now. Alrighty, so hopefully if you're playing this video, you've already finished this first part of your assignment for today. We're going to go through and just kind of go over all of this together. So multiplication, we know that we can do things similar to, well, this is called notation, by the way, before I continue. We can write things similar as 2 times 3, right? Well, in algebra, we use these things called variables, and a variable is a letter that represents an unknown number. X is a variable that's used a lot. So if I go X and the multiplication symbol, those X's could get confused. So we're learning to pretty much write it a different way without using the X in multiplication. That way, we know exactly where we stand. So we're learning to write multiplication in 2 different ways. With a raised dot, so 2 times 3 with a dot like that, and also with parentheses. 2 times 3. All 3 of these ways represent multiplication. Alrighty. So, just for practice, let's go to page 130. And let's look at number 1. Number 1 gives you 3x times 4. 3x times 4. Do you see how these 2 x's can get confusing? Our goal is to get rid of this x Whereas this x here means multiplication, we know how to write multiplication in two different ways. So the directions say write each of the following expressions as an algebraic term using A, a raised dot, and B, parentheses. So we're writing it two different ways. So we'll have 3x with a raised dot, which means times, 4, and then with parentheses. So 3x will be in parentheses, and then 4 will also be in parentheses. Let's look at number 3. Number 3 gives us 16 times CD. So we'll write it two ways. A with a raised dot, so this is A here, and this is B. So A with a raised dot, we have 16 times, which the x can be changed to a raised dot to mean multiplication, and then you keep your second term, which is CD. And then 16 would be in parentheses, and CD would be in parentheses. Know that if one of the numbers is just a single number, no variables, theoretically you can put 16 outside of the parentheses if it's just a number, and it can look like this. So either one of these ways would be acceptable. Alrighty. Next, let's go ahead and look at exponents. Let's look at exponents. Actually, before we look at exponents, let's look at the division aspect. I didn't see that here. On page 130, numbers 5 through 8. It's very similar to multiplication. Multiplication is used with an x. It's also used with a raised dot. It's also used with parentheses. And as you get older, sometimes it's just written side by side, which we'll get in the hang of that coming up shortly. But let's look at division. We're just going to jump straight into it, looking at number 5. If they tell me that they have 7x divided by 4, there's two ways to write division. You can write it A as a fraction and B as a product of factors. So, if I want to write it two ways, A as a fraction, we all know that the bar in a fraction represents division. So I'm going to take my 7x and then divide it by 4, knowing this represents division. And then B as a product of factors. And product means multiplication. So I'm saying that I'm going to pull out this number to the side and have 7/4 times x. There's like an invisible multiplication symbol right here. When you have a number and a variable side by side, it means multiplication. So we're having the product of factors where 7 and the 4 are being divided. And let's look at number 7. Oops, sorry, it's my highlighter. Number 7, 12x divided by 16. So A is a fraction, so I'm going to take my 12x divided by 16, and I can pull this variable out to the side and keep my fraction 12/16 and then multiply it by x. So it's just writing it two different ways. We're not doing any math involved with numbers 1 through 8. If there are any questions at all, feel free to text me. I'll be happy to help. Let's look at number 9 on page 130. We're going to write using exponents and simplify any numerical coefficients. Exponents we have kind of covered before when we did order of operations. We know how to simplify exponents. We know how to take 3 squared, and 3 squared means 9. 3 times 3, which is 9. So let's look at number 9. Number 9, they give us 3 times 3 times 2 times x. So they tell us in the directions to simplify any numerical coefficients, which means if a number is being multiplied by another number times another number, I just want to know what the final number would be. So 3 times 3 is 9. I'm going to bring the rest down. so times 2 times x, and 9 times 2 is 18, and I'm going to bring down my times x. Don't forget that if we have a number and a variable side by side, it represents multiplication, so I can just put it simply as 18x. It implies multiplication. Let's look at number 11. We have in parentheses 2, 3, 4, x, and x. So don't forget that when parentheses are side by side, it means it has like an invisible multiplication sign in between. It means multiplication. So one step at a time, what is 2 times 3? 6. We have 6 times 4 times x times x. 6 times 4 is 24 times x times x. Alrighty. When we have x times x, it is not 2x. X has an invisible exponent of a 1. So when I take x to the first power times x to the first power, to get your final answer, you keep your base, so the base is x, and then you add your exponents. My exponents are 1 and 1 plus 1 is 2. So this part here becomes x to the second power, which is also stated as x squared. Let's look at number 13. For number 13, I have 3 times x times y times z. Alrighty. We only have one number. Is there anything we have to multiply with that number? No, so that just stays 3. X times x is x squared. You keep the base. You have invisible ones as exponents. You add them together, you have 2. So you have x to the second power, which is x squared. We only have one y, so we cannot combine the y's with any other x's. So we'll keep our y, and then we'll keep our z, because there's only one z. We can only combine exponents if they are the same base. X and y are different letters. They will not be the same variable. They are not the same base. So in this case, we will have 3 x squared y z. Letters and numbers side by side mean multiplication, so I can get rid of all of those parentheses and leave my final answer as 3x squared times y times z. Alrighty. Number 15. Before I go on to number 15, I want to refresh your memory that if I have x times x times x times x times x, I keep my base, which is x. How many x's do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my exponent would be 5. Just a quick reminder. Count how many of the same variable you have. It will be raised to that exponent. So for number 15, I have, wow, that's a lot of x's. Okay. I have x times x times x times x times y times, I messed that up, I'm sorry. Trying that again. Alright, x times x times x times y times z times x. Alright, in this case I have how many x's? 1, 2, 3, 4. So my x will be raised to the 4th power. How many y's do I have? 2. So my y will be raised to the 2nd power. And how many z's do I have? 1. So it will stay z to the 1st power. And if it has just an exponent of 1, it's not necessarily needed. So you can just do x to the 4th power times y to the 2nd power. Again, anything to the 2nd power is also saying that it's y squared. Just another way of saying it. Number 17, I have 3 squared times a times a times a. Well, first and foremost, what is 3 squared? 3 squared means I'm going to have 2 of the number 3's being multiplied together. It is not 3 times 2. Again, it is not 3 times 2. This is the same thing as 3 times 3. And I'll drop down my times a times a times a. Alright, and 3 times 3 is 9. And how many a's do I have? 3. So I will keep my base a, and I'll raise it to the exponent, which is how many times the a is being multiplied by itself. And it's being multiplied by itself 3 times. 3 times. Alright, if there are any questions with exponents, again, please feel free to message me. Alrighty. Let's look at the definition of a term. Just as a quick refresher, a term is a combination of constant and variable factors. These factors are separated by adding and subtracting. It's what creates an algebraic expression. And each algebraic expression can have a different number of terms. Again, a term is separated by adding and subtracting only. So for example, I'm just going to put quantities to simplify it. Algebraic So if I have, let's just say, 4x plus 7y minus 10xy plus 12z squared. I'm going to look at my addition and subtraction. These are going to separate the number of terms that I have. This is my first term. This is my second term, my third term, and my fourth term. So this expression would have 4 terms. If I had 17x squared over 3, is there any adding and subtracting at all? No. Therefore, it would just be 1 term. Alright, if you haven't, if you noticed it, a monomial has 1 term, a binomial has 2 terms, and a trinomial has 3 terms. This one has 1 term, so what would the name of this be? A monomial. So again, 1 term is monomial, 2 terms is binomial, 3 terms is trinomial. Anything above 3, so in this case here, it's called a polynomial. And a polynomial has many terms. Poly means many. Another example, if I had 16y plus 2, I have an addition sign right here. My terms are separated by adding and subtracting, so I have 1 term, 2 terms, and what is it called when an expression has 2 terms? It's called a binomial. Alright, so let's look at number 21 on page 131. Number 21, it gives you 5xy. Is there any adding or subtracting in this case? No, there is not. So I only have one term. And what is it called when I have one term? A monomial. (23) I have x plus y. I have addition, so it's going to separate my terms. So I have this term and this term, which means I have two terms. And what's it called when I have two terms? A binomial. And number 25, I have ABC minus BC plus 5. Again, I'm going to separate my terms by adding and subtracting. So I have 1, 2, 3 terms. And what's it called when I have 3 terms? A trinomial. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and stop for today. Your work that I need you to work on at home, I'm going to put your assignment. Is going to be page 130, numbers 2 through 26 even. Feel free to text me if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help. Again, your assignment is page 130, numbers 2 through 26 even. Best of luck. Let me know if anything. Have a great one.